Hi, this is Cam Calderon, and this is my last video for cost-benefit analysis. I have tried to make this video at least 4 times now. For some reason, my computer is playing me a trick. So hopefully this time is going to be fine. Yes, and well, apologies if my previous video did not have appropriate sound. I thought everything was fine. Okay, so we are going to cover the last session of cost-benefit analysis. The aim of this session is to cover allocative efficiency and to cover as well the topic of Pareto efficiency. We will cover some examples and that is going to be our last session. We are going then to have 3 weeks of Easter break, and after that we are going to have 2 more weeks in which you are going to have revision weeks for your assessments. I will disclose the assignment brief for the last assessment as well very soon. So please look at my announcement that is going to be sent very soon. All right, let's go to my full desktop. So first of all, I want to start by doing a brief recap of our session, or previous session about cost-benefit analysis. It's very important to understand these concepts because it is going to allow us to understand the concept of allocative efficiency later on. The first one is the concept of present value. We covered this during our previous session. The future as well as the present benefits and costs must be included in the analysis. As we have future benefits and future costs, we need to bring these future costs and benefits to the present value in order to get to know what is the value today. So economic agents and society as a whole maximize the present value of net benefits. So what we want to do is to bring net benefits to the present value and hypothetically choose that net benefit when is the optimum. Although in practice there are some caveats in there. So for instance, when we are doing sensitivity analysis. Present value is very important because many projects change in value very quickly. So one example of this is the share of Tesla and other technological shares. At the moment in which I am recording this video, the yields of the bonds, of yields and treasury bills are increasing, meaning that the discount rate that we use in the formula of present value is increasing, making the present value less and less for those projects. Yes, so the present value of Tesla is based on calculations of the future cash flows for that share, for that electric car, right, or for that technology. If you want to see Tesla as a technological and innovative business or corporation rather than just a car manufacturer. So this can be seen very quickly in this formula here. So if this interest rates increases, if yields increases, as this is in the denominator, the whole present value will decrease. So if interest rates carry on increasing in the future, you are going to be seeing many of the technological shares fall. Particularly, I would say blockchain, which is very linked to Bitcoin. Bitcoin will particularly be affected as well by interest rates increases, since Bitcoin does not have any interest rate. Fiat currency they do pay some interest rates when they are bought. Is not the case for Bitcoin, and in general many other technological shares, because they need to invest heavily to build what they need to build today in order to get future cash flows. Yes, so one of the examples is the build of a dam today, and that needs to be expended initially during the project, but we are going to get some benefits during the lifetime of this project, the dam. Yes, and so therefore cash flows are very important, and the interest rates at which we discount those future cash flows is also very important. The less these cash flows, these are going to let us calculate a less present value, and the higher the interest rates, the same, the less present value. So the present value can be calculated very simply here with one example. So if we have 100 today and we invest this and we are going to receive 4% in 1 year, so that will make 104 in 1 year. We can make the reverse calculation. So if I'm going to receive 104 next year, how much that will be today? Yes. Well, if there is a discount rate of 0.0 of 0.04 or 4%, so we will get 100. So exactly the reverse calculation. We use, in order to calculate that, this formula. PV is the present value, that is 100, F is 104, and R is the 4%. So if you input these numbers here, you can calculate the present value, the future value, or even the discount rate if you have two of these variables available. All right. So the discount rate is, for this reason, one of the most important issues when choosing what is going to be used. Yes. So the discount rate for the future consumption of rate of time preference. The higher the social discount rate is going to, the higher the social value of consumption today relative to the consumption tomorrow. That is particularly something that is going on at the moment. So as we have a very small discount rate at the moment, so the social value of consumption today is like, or at least we are trying to encourage the value of consumption today. Obviously, at the moment, there are no many things in which we can expend the money about. So we will need like the stop of the lockdown in order to consume. Once the lockdown finishes, I think we are expecting that people is going to start using their savings, yes, because they have been saving the money in order to consume a lot. So the discount rate is therefore like an issue that is very important. The conventional use is to use the treasury bill interest rates when we are using public projects. The treasury bill is or represents the cost of borrowing at virtually zero risk. Yes, so whenever you buy a treasury bill is when you are trying to look for a safe haven, or when you want to keep your money very, very safe. At the moment that we have a negative real interest rates, meaning that the interest rates that the treasuries are paying are not are less than the inflation rate. So in real terms, you are decreasing your wealth. Yes, but since this represents the cost of borrowing at no risk, sometimes projects and CBA analysis choose different discount rates, particularly if we are using, for instance, a discount rate, or we are using a cost-benefit analysis for certain region. We use certain discount rate that are more linked to that region, for instance. And researchers often conduct a sensitivity analysis to see how sensitive the results are to changes in assumptions about discount rates, costs, and benefits. Sometimes, and just sometimes, we do not use as a best parameter to choose a project the net benefit. We perform sensitivity analysis and if the optimum level causes too many fluctuations in our parameters, probably we will try to choose something close to that project, but that is more safe in terms of variability, of volatility. So we have here an example of that, the Coquihalla Highway, or this motorway. I think this is a project in Australia, if my memory is right. And we have the project of the highway with tolls and with no tolls. What would be the best project? Well, we have here 4 CBA analyses. The first one is the global perspective. The second one, provincial perspective. The third one is the global perspective with tolls. And the last one is the provincial perspective with tolls. Here in the upper panel, we are going to account for the project benefits. So the time and operating cost savings, yes, from the global perspective, taking into account all the population that is going to use the highway is 389, which compares to the local perspective, 292. Yes, from the global perspective with tolls, we see that the project actually decreases, yes, the benefit decreases, and the benefit decreases as well from the provincial perspective. So the time and operating costs, therefore, are the savings on the cost are actually lower with tolls. This is the value of the highway. This is the safety benefits or lives. We need to quantify that in monetary terms, unfortunately. What are the benefits in terms of lives? So as you can see from the global perspective, it's higher than in the provincial perspective. Again, the global perspective is more broad. It's going to take into account the lives of everyone. Provincial perspective might take into account just the benefits for that region. So this we have again here with tolls and no tolls, and the difference is again very clear, in which the safety benefits with no tolls is actually higher, yes, from the global perspective and the provincial perspective. Alternative route benefits, we have here different projects, yes, as well. The highest, again, for the global perspective, the lowest in comparison with the global perspective, here the provincial perspective. In general, we have here the total benefits, and here we have the project costs. The project costs are more or less the same, yes. The toll collection is not here from for the no tolls, but with tolls there is some collection, yes, both construction, etc. We have the total costs. So the net benefits are going to be simply the difference between the total benefits and the total costs, and these are the total benefits. You can see from this project that with no tolls is the best project, yes, rendering 148.8 in terms of millions in terms of benefits, and from the provincial perspective 38.4. With tolls, the project is not likely to be conducted if we have the provincial perspective, as the net social benefits are negative. All right, guys, so please allow me the metaphor in order to continue these discussions about CBA analysis and the concept of allocative efficiency. That is probably the aim of this session. Well, together with the Pareto efficiency. So we have here, and allow me this poem, if you want, about the ballad of ecological awareness. So this poem, if you can please read it, is about the building of a dam, and there are many costs that are linked actually to the build of this project. And it's very interesting in which it shows that any time that we conduct a project, even if it is like a project that we think that is going to benefit the society as a whole, there are going to be nonetheless some losers, people that are going to lose at some extent their wealth because of the project. So the cost of building dam is always underestimated. There's erosion of the delta that the river has created. That is true. There's fertile soil below the dam that's likely to be looted. That's true. And the tangled mat of forest that has got to be uprooted. That's true. So please carry on reading this. I think I found this interesting in order to introduce the topic of externalities of the CBA analysis. Sometimes we do not look at the broad picture, we just look at the spender's perspective. Again, guardians look at the broad, guardians look at the narrow perspective, the benefits for that particular organization. The spenders look at the world as a whole, yes? And that changes the perspective of CBA. So this relates a lot to the efficient resource of allocations, since we have benefits and costs, and benefits and costs that are actually not linear. Yes, they look actually more like curves, such as in this figure. In the y-axis, we are going to measure the benefits and costs in monetary terms, yes, and in the x-axis, we have the quantity, the output quantity, that is actually measured in quantity of product. Yes, so the shape of this curve is like this because every time that you carry on increasing the quantity of output, the benefits are going to have marginal decrease in terms of benefits. Yes, so there are marginal decrease of marginal benefits are decreasing here. Right? So the opposite occurs with the cost. Cost is a function as well of quantity. The more you increase the output, the higher are going to be the costs. So if you carry on increasing here, the costs actually, you can see here that the cost increases exponentially. Right, so as a result of this shape of these curves, the benefit curve and the cost curve, we have therefore the more efficient resource allocation, meaning that at this stage, we are going to find that the highest like difference between these two curves are going to render the maximum net benefits. Yes, so when this segment has the highest or the largest size, we can see that these are the highest net benefits. So as a result, the more efficient resource of allocation has like a top. From this point, the resource allocation is going to be less efficient. Yes. And in this point, the more we increase the quantity, the highest we are going to get our resource allocation. At this point, the resource allocation is going to be less and less efficient. The same happened with the costs. Yes, costs are increasing up until certain point. Say here where we have the highest net benefit. From this point, the net benefits are actually getting more and more negative. Well, not negative, the costs are increasing more and more, and that is actually taking or being making less efficient the resource allocation. Right, so we have here in this table the Coquihalla highway from a provincial guardian's perspective. Remember that the provincial guardian's perspective is a perspective that only looks at that organization that is producing the project. So for them, wages usually are not a benefit. Yes. Whereas for the expendas, if you pay someone wages, that is a benefit because someone is benefiting from the project, right? So as you can see, there is a huge difference between the guardians and the expendas. And we have here the project with no toll and the project with tolls. We have here the revenues, the benefits, and the expenditures, the costs. And we can conclude that from this table that the net revenue expenditure benefits with no tolls is 345.7. With tolls is 204.9, meaning that from the guardian's perspective, this is the project that we need to choose. We have here the spender's perspective. Again, the spender's perspective is more broad. So they will see as a benefit every resource that any constituent from that province has received. Yes, if they have received any money or any other resource, so they will see that as a benefit rather than a cost. Yes, so with no tolls, you can see how here the net benefits are 729 and with tolls 577. There is a huge difference. So like in terms of how to like classify the cost and benefits from perspective to perspective. Right, so this leads us to the concept of Pareto efficiency or the primary definition of allocative efficiency. We previously have seen how the course of benefit and cost like led us to the idea of how to choose certain project, because the highest the difference between the benefits and cost. So I think that is going to be the best resource allocative efficiency. Yes, but actually in CBA framework is a framework that measures the allocative efficiency. So if you think well, that is in the spirit of CBA analysis. We want to get to know what is the best project. That is the purpose of the purpose of CBA analysis. So therefore, is a framework for measuring allocative efficiency. So the allocative efficiency is how the resources are deployed in their highest value, and they are used in terms of highest number of higher amount of goods or cash or services. Yes. So what we want to get to know is in the allocative efficiency is to get the most of the resources that we are using in certain project. The Pareto efficiency is an allocation of goods that is efficient, taking into account two groups of people. So the two groups are said to be in a Pareto efficiency if the project can make at least one person better off without making any person else worse off. So if a project actually makes a person better off with making a person else worse off, that is not a Pareto efficiency. So as a result, the Pareto efficiency takes into account that there are not going to be like more people, there is not the possibility of benefiting more people from the project. So if you allocate certain project to certain region, that project are going to be comparable with other project that is going actually to affect the same number of people if it is moved to like a different project. Yes. So we have, for instance, examples of this can be HS2. If you decide what is the path of the HS2 you try to make at least one person better off without making anyone else worse off. So the same number of people are going to be benefited if we choose path A for the HS2 or path B. If that happens, it's because those projects, these two projects, are Pareto efficient. Yes, they are giving the same number of people or benefiting the same number of people. So CBA can be used to provide information about the relative efficiency of alternative projects. And that is what we want to know. Here we have in the graph an explanation, a graphical explanation of the Pareto frontier or the allocative efficiency in Pareto. Say that we have two groups of people here or two regions, yes, with people here, and that we are here in a status quo point, yes. So say we are before the or during the days that the pandemic war declared. So we are here in a point of a status quo, but there are many things and many projects that we can do. So for instance, at the beginning we had herd immunity projects. We have as well trying to get a vaccine. We have as well the project of lockdowns, yes, isolation, like following China, the policies of China, etc. The main thing is that we have many projects that are within this gray area that is called Pareto improvements over the status quo. Yes, and that is going to let us to choose better projects. But the more you advance into these projects, there are going to be a Pareto frontier. This Pareto frontier, as you can see, makes no people benefiting more if we move along this black bar, black line. Yes, you can see how if we move along the people, more people are going to benefit here, but at the same time, less people are going to benefit in the same quantity here. So the Pareto frontier. There is not much relationship with the coronavirus problem, since we have seen that, for instance, the group of rich people, if you want, or more wealthy people in the UK have been benefiting the most with the policies rather than the people with less resources in the country, meaning that we actually have a situation of not Pareto efficiency there. Yes, and that is something that I think probably we will need to sort out with new policies in the future, actually tackling poverty and looking at those sectors that are deprived might be a good solution for coronavirus, because as a result of the pandemic, these groups have been affected the most, since they are more like in social contact in hospitals, ambulances, retail sector, supermarkets, care homes, nurses, etc. So they are the population that actually is more in contact, not the wealthiest. I think they are actually better off in terms of policies. The stock exchange is increasing, the asset of houses are increasing as well, etc. Whereas the poor, the sector that is that has less, like that underprivileged, probably has less opportunities and also has the highest amount of deaths because of the pandemic. So we have here finally a categorization of net benefits of projects. So in order to categorize the net benefits, we need to think of two concepts, which are the opportunity cost and the willingness to pay. Every decision that we take has an opportunity cost. Think of this session. For instance, by seeing this session, you have chosen to stop yourself from watching a movie, doing some, going to work. You have as well probably some opportunity cost because you could have been outside exercising, etc. So as you can see, we need to get to know what are the opportunity costs in order to take the decision of what inputs we are going to get into certain policy. Once we have measured the opportunity cost of our investment of the project or the policy, we have certain inputs that generates the policy, and the policy generates certain outputs. So say that the policy is a public swimming pool, where there are opportunity costs for the public swimming pool, since we could have used those resources to build I do not know, a public park. Yes? So there is an opportunity cost that needs to be measured as well. When we have the inputs for this policy, therefore we have some outputs. The outputs can be, for instance, in terms of the number of people that is willing to pay for the services of the public swimming pool. Obviously, when we talk about willingness to pay, we are probably we are probably thinking that everyone is willing to go and swim. The reality is, for this project and many other projects, that sometimes people are not very keen to go to swim. So the only reason a person will go to the swimming pool is because they are actually being paid, and not they are receiving some money, and not because they are actually willing to pay any money to go to the swimming pool. Yes? So we need to take into account as well what is the willingness to pay for that policy that we are studying. That is something very important, not just in terms of impact, but in terms of getting to know what are going to be the final effects that are going to make the project more viable for the future. Okay, so this is our last exercise. Apart from the theory that we have covered so far, we have here an example. The example is interesting, in which it allows us to choose efficient projects and the use of net benefits versus benefit cost ratios. So in the first column, we have different projects, including not doing anything, no projects, the costs, the benefits, the net benefits that are simply benefits minus costs, and the ratio benefits to cost, meaning that if it is 10, we have 10 benefits for each one cost. Yes? Which is obviously the highest here in this column. So the highest ratio is for project A in this table. So let's imagine that we need to choose projects from here. If we do not have any restrictions of projects, of combinations of projects, what will you choose? So I think you will need to look at the net benefits. Yes, you can see how the net benefit for A is 9, the next one is 20, and the next one is 4, 2. If we mix for C and D, we will get actually more, which is 14. And for project E is negative. So I think we will not do project E, since the net benefits are negative. Yes, and we can choose A because the project is rendering 9. The project B is very high, so we can do it 29 in benefits. And finally, the project C and D, which combined render highest net benefits than doing them individually or separately. Yes, so as a result, you can see how if we combine these projects, A, B, and the combination of C and D, the net benefits are 43 million. Now, let's imagine that these projects are mutually exclusive. If projects are mutually exclusive, that means that they are different. So we have here swimming pools, a football pitch, a park, a gym, etc. Right? If projects are mutually exclusive, what will be the most efficient project? In that case, you can see how the highest or the best project is project B, which renders 20 millions in net benefits. Now let's imagine that this is a country which has limited resources, yes, which is not able to print notes and perform helicopter policies of, you know, like deploying notes all over around. So in that scenario, therefore, you can see how the total costs cannot exceed 10 million. If the cost cannot exceed 10 million, what will be the mix of projects that you will choose? So we see again, or we look at the net benefits again. If we choose A, we will get 9, yes, and the costs we will be 1, yes. So we have outstanding 9. In that case, we will be able to choose C and D, which is going to render 14. As you can see, in that scenario, we will be choosing 23, or we will get net benefits of 23 billion. And that is the highest mixture of projects when we only have 10 millions to expend. We have only 10 millions to spend, therefore that is the best combination. You cannot, if you try, you will not be able to find a better combination when we have limited resources. As a summary, guys, I think you have seen how choosing efficient projects sometimes changes. When you have a poorer country or developing country, you will see how sometimes projects depend a lot on these constraints, yes, especially limited amount of capital. And therefore, they will end up choosing projects that are not going to give them the highest benefits because they simply cannot afford them. Whereas when we do not have constraints, probably the situation of richer countries, yes, no constraints means that actually those countries are able to use the best technological and best projects in terms of net benefits. Okay, guys, with this we finish the sessions on cost benefits. This session is very important because the sessions on net benefits are very important since they allow you to apply to many positions such as the government economic service and many other public roles. Also is very important for very many private projects, especially since we are in the era of sustainability and climate change. So we will need to take into account other costs. For courts, for instance, is very important as well, since courts usually use a cost-benefit analysis in order to determine what are going to be the affections on people, and determine if there are going to be compensations, for instance. And there are many uses of this. So this is the last session, so I will see you during my last 2 sessions after the Easter break for a revision on the last assessments. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening.